everything should be good. I'm streaming the music to you guys. If you want to partake in Skyrim jams, then yeah. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Dungeon Meshi Book Club. I didn't make a loading screen because I was a little lazy, since this was going to be like a one episode one compared to like the One Piece one, which I can use like 20 million times. I am joined, as always, with Jello and Bo.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. God, this Skyrim music's making me a little bit like sleepy. You know?
Sleepy is a thing you might feel after you eat a good meal,
Oh,
so that's appropriate.
Oh shit, dude. Why is that a reference to something?
No. Two roads diverge. One of us always tells the truth and the other always lies.
You're wearing Dungeon Meshi clothes?
Here's the
yeah.
problem. We both chose to be the smartass there.
Yeah. Like, man, I always tell my mom I'd rather be a smartass than a dumbass, you know?
Yeah.
And that's a smartass answer.
Anyway, here we are with Dungeon Meshi. I'm not calling it by its English name.
Dude, like, okay, so obviously I have Delicious and Dungeon as the logo because obviously, like, English makes sense to English brain. Go, ooh, but God, Delicious and Dungeon is just like I can't think of like a better name.
Can I just say that I did post some think brain questions a week ago, and the first one was just, what would you call it? And one person was like, I actually like Delicious in Dungeon, and I was like, get out of my book club.
I think it has a tiny bit of charm in the way of like, I don't think it's intentional of like, oh man, dude, Delicious in Dungeon, our goal is to eat people. Or eat my sister. Please eat my sister, please. But yeah, welcome everybody. I hope you had a great time reading this. I know it's been a while. First one of the new year. Yippee. How's it going? And so this has been so long. But yeah, like I think I want to start off by just like some information I found out. Because I researched the mangaka a little bit because, you know, I was like curious. I was like, what else have they done? And they haven't really done a whole lot. This is their first like long runner. So Dungeon Meshi started in 2014 and ended like later last year. So it's like 9 years in the making, pretty much. Like took 9 years to finish. That's like around probably gonna be like 14 volumes, 13, 14 volumes, right?
Mm-hmm.
A bunch of cool one-shots mostly. Yeah, they had one series that lasted like an entire year that produced like one volume, but like that's short. You know, that's short for, it's confirmed 14 volumes. Okay, cool. When I researched it, they were like, yeah. But yeah, being monthly really did good for the manga. Yes.
Yeah, being monthly helps every manga.
It's that unfortunate thing that it's just like, man, the art in this was really good. And it's like, wow, I didn't know it was monthly. I just kind of assumed. I didn't like look that up. But it's just like looking at the art, I'm like, God, yeah, this is a monthly manga. Except Black Clover somehow. I mean, it's like, you know, it's just like, but yeah. So it's just like for a first long running work, I think you can see a lot of growth in the series, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like I like. Right at the start, like even just this was only a problem for like the first 3 chapters maybe.
Yeah.
But I was like, I'm worried because there's a lot of bad paneling here. Like I remember the first time you see a running mushroom, there's some guys running from it, and like the 3 panels in the tier of which the other non-party adventurers are running from it. They like hear it from the right, and then suddenly the adventurers are on the left, and then they run by. It's like the lines of action are all fucked up, and I was like, oh man, this might be rough if it's like this. But she gets way better very quickly.
Yeah.
I think this is like a manga that I've read that is like, if I had a reward that's like most improved, this definitely is just like, you can clearly see the growth in like not only storytelling but the art, but also the paneling and everything about it is just so nice. I'm sorry, I just looked at chat. But yeah, no. And so, do we want to go over the questions that you asked to the audience, but like us saying it, right? Bo wants
we
to
can.
First off, I have to say I'm being told on because I just looked over and saw Bo wants to bang the winged lion. I do.
You are being told on.
The Bo was just like, I mean, and then like another panel came in, he was swole as fuck flexing, and Bo was like, I mean, like,
yeah, there's
Yeah, the thing I said was I'm not above barking at a demon.
yeah, that's what he said.
So,
yeah.
So Bo and I are currently watching the One Piece movies, and this is relevant.
Yeah.
They try to sexualize the characters nonstop because it's a One Piece movie. And like, I wish people understood, I wish Japanese creators understood that if they want me to go auga horny for their characters, they need to stop wiggling boobs in my face, especially if they're drawn like One Piece boobs, and instead start showing me some like soft, supple, well-drawn human anatomy like this artist does so well, and also some fucked up monster girls, because like we're all barking at monster chimera fallen.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah.
I wear that proudly, but also chimera fantasy Marseille. Anyone, the fucking multi-head dog thing that Lio sees in that one chapter, I was all about that one. I was like,
yeah.
That one Senshi chapter header also, where I was like, this is, I don't go here, but wow.
Wow. God.
Yeah, my favorite way of describing Ryoko Kui's art is very fleshy.
Yeah.
And that's my favorite way of drawing people.
Yeah, I really like how they draw bodies, and you pointed that out like yesterday, and it's just like Phelan's upper body on the like chimera, and then just like, you know, just the full shots of like, you know, the full chimera body, and just everything about that is just like, you know, it just feels so fucking solid, right? Like, and that's the kind of shit I love, right? And so I think just to get a little bit more structure, what were your initial thoughts like around like the first volume and everything? How were you feeling about the series, right?
I told Bo when Bo started reading, because Bo always reads last, that I was like, I think the first couple chapters threaten to be boring. Because and I think the reason for that is it starts in such a stock standard dungeon. And I think the chapter where everyone goes, oh, is the mollusks in the living armor chapter.
To me, at the beginning of Dungeon Meshi, it felt like the series was more suited to being a 4-comma comic than
absolutely
like what it became, it evolved into, right? And I was a little bit scared because it's just like they set up a status quo so soon. And I think one thing I always hate as a reader is such a solid status quo, right? And that I was a little bit like iffy about it, but like obviously kept reading because I had to. And I read this when it was coming out back in like 2014, and I stopped at a certain point. Just seeing it evolve and then break away from that was just so nice and lovely, because like I feel like most people making this story, people love obviously there was a lot of people who loved the beginning of Dungeon Meshi, right? And I feel like a lot of artists could have fall into the trap of just doing this forever. Right, instead of having it bloom into a grander story, right? And just keep on making it until it like, because like Spy X Family is a similar situation where it's such a solid status quo that everyone enjoys that it just kept going and going and going until I fell off, right? And,
as a noted cute romance story enjoyer, that's the fucking death knell of that genre, is an unshakable status quo.
Yeah.
I like if I can like speak to the series at large, I think Dungeon Meshi is one of the neatest manga I've ever read. Like the whole thing is very much just going, oh, that's neat. Oh, that's neat. Oh, that's neat. And it's like a lot of good ideas for monster. I always want to say economy, and that's never the word I mean. Like food chain shit. There's another word for it, and it's
like ecosystem.
Ecosystem, thank you.
Bo said something so fucking true, which was, it feels like the creator owns a fish tank. And that spoke to my soul. And that's why I enjoyed the dungeon in Dungeon Meshi so much, because I take care of I don't have any fish right now, but I used to take care of a lot of fish and take care of the tank and everything like that. And so it's just like, yes, it does just feel like a fish tank, like a terrarium fish tank kind of situation. And I think that's kind of beautiful, because obviously in a world filled with boring fantasy, right, that it just like things exist for no reason, right, seeing the food chain and how everything interacts and kind of stressing that point is very good for world building, because if you just have that, then you just kind of like, it's a domino effect, where if you start thinking about that, world building, the shit gets so easy. Because
it's really interesting in that, like, don't be too surprised by me being the negative guy, but I think I'm going to be the bad guy of this episode in the end, and I'm going to keep most of that for later. But after reading all of Dungeon Meshi, which I like and think is good, and especially after reading the World Guide, which was not required reading, but I thought I should, I think in the way that, like, Oda is good at, like, coming up with concepts for physical settings, but very bad at, like, figuring out the human and living settlements that would work on them and tying a world together, and instead he just makes video game levels. I think this author is really great at creating ecosystems on a small, localized scale, and remarkably bad at thinking about world building anything bigger than, like, a US state size. And I'll explain more of what I mean later on, but like, I think their talent is definitely terrarium level shit.
But yeah, so that's like the initial thoughts going in, and like as you said, like the living armor is kind of where like it starts rolling, right? I genuinely would not recommend the World Guide. For me, supplementary reading like the World Guide and like the SPSs for like One Piece and stuff, I never read them. And it's this kind of thing of, if you cannot convey that information to me in the story, then I don't view it as important enough for me to read. And if me reading it doesn't get hurts your story, then that's a problem. And so I usually tend to avoid the supplementary things, right? Because of that.
The way I look at it is, I like reading on that stuff because I think often if someone's really good at macro world building, you'll think, you'll like see that extra information and think back on like one thing a character said offhand and be like, oh, that makes so much more sense. Like, clearly they were thinking about this, but they weren't able to like fit it in the main story because there wasn't time for it and it wasn't important enough. And I kind of like that. And I like the world building of like the dungeon, because I think the coolest thing about Dungeon Meshi is its scaling theme of food chain ecosystems of here is just a dungeon and some creatures, some animalistic monsters in the dungeon feeding off of each other. That expands to how does the human economy grow around it? That's really interesting. Then it's like, oh, it's not just that. There's also like, here's how the dungeon lord works and how they generate monsters, and you have to populate the world with smaller monsters or those monsters die. And then you get the grand scheme of the demon feeding off of human desires, which is propagated by the dungeon. And it's like, this is a great scale. It's like zooming back on ever bigger food chains. So I was like, oh, I bet that a couple questions I had unanswered by the series about stuff, mostly about like the elves and Kabru and like some of the Eastern stuff with Shuro, I was like, I'd be curious to know a little bit more about those. And I read the World Guide and I was like, I like this series a bit less now, actually, which bummed me out. I was not expecting that. I'll just say, because I want to keep it positive at first, the best thing about the World Guide is at the very end of it, there's some Senshi journal entries where they're like very short. They're like 3 sentences a day, and he writes one like once every 3 days, and it's him talking about like, I've met these youngsters or whatever, and it's like, it's nice to see his perspective because he's such a quiet character. And the best moment for me, and I actually think it ended up kind of weirdly being my favorite Senshi moment, even though it's outside of the main story, is when they all get changed into like he gets changed into an elf, and he only talks like 3 times as an elf. Like clearly the joke is just, oh, he's pretty, and it's not what Senshi normally looks like. And he's like, I said my personality didn't change though, and I said like 2 things, and they were like, wow, I guess you really got that elf hoidiness or whatever when you transformed. And I wanted to tell them off, but then I realized I said those same things to Marcille when I first met her. I will never say those things again. And I was like, that's a really good moment of character growth that should have just been in between chapters in the actual series. So that to me is the thing you missed if you didn't read the World Guide.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say, my part, the effect of reading the series last, because I put it off to the last minute as I do, was going into it after Jello had gone through it and had read through this World Guide and was coming with a lot of negativity about it.
You shouldn't read my thoughts.
It wasn't stuff that you spoilered. They were just there. I like seeing what my friends write. I didn't read a lot of it. I just got the general vibe. So I went into the series.
You're killing the vibe, Jello.
Already like. No, I will say it did help in going into the series because it did make me go into the series trying to understand things that Jello was talking about in it and putting an ear to the ground for these kinds of things.
But no, so God, where do we carry on from? Because we talked about the initial things and like one thing I think about this manga is that like, because its core like theme, right? Because I remember back when we did the One Piece thing, we always talked about like what the villains like represented and everything like that. And obviously this manga is about survival and like eating and consuming and all of the like good things and then also bad things about having to eat to survive, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's such an interesting topic because I'm not really sure how many stories I've like read about such a thing, right?
The other mangaka who really likes this topic specifically is, God, I hope I'm remembering her name right, Hiromu Arakawa, the Full Metal Alchemist mangaka. She in Full Metal Alchemist has whole arcs about that. And also Silver Spoon is very much about that because she grew up on a farm and is like very, very attuned with man, sometimes you got to eat shit that's alive. That's how life sustains itself. And I really like her writing in that, and I liked it in this. I think it's a cool topic to kind of try and step back and observe without the lens of like society morality. And it's very fun to see all the characters, like, you watch the party get more and more desensitized to it. And even fucking Laios, who starts desensitized to it, has to get more desensitized to it. And, but then at the end, it's like, everyone eat my sister. And the whole cast is like, oh, we don't want to do that.
Bro. Yeah, I really love those themes and stuff, and like just seeing how it relates to like the entire cast and everything. One thing I found, but then Jello like talked about, where it's just like I feel like Laos, or however you pronounce it, I suck at pronouncing things, just deal with it. Laos, Marcille, Senshi all had like a really strong like place in the party for me. Chilchak, it took a while because it felt like he had a good idea for those 3, and then Chilchak was just kind of like, he does things occasionally, and then they slowly, as time goes on, because it's this kind of thing where it's just like, Jello has this one opinion about it. I have a different opinion about it. Where what is it? Like Chilchak had to get, like learn the birds and the bees from Senshi. Jello read that as like his reaction to that being why the fuck are you telling me this, old man? And my reaction was it genuinely looks like a gag of him not understanding, right?
I definitely think he was freaking out because it was an awkward social situation.
I read it as freaking out because he didn't know.
But I know we talked about this and you were like, I don't fully trust that Chilchuk's entire character had been written out by that point, so it felt weird to me that later it's revealed he has a wife and kids. And I will say, I still think he was freaking out and is like because it was awkward. I do agree. I'm not necessarily sure. I think that at that point he had a wife and kids in the author's mind.
What I'm saying is, he has 3 kids because he read up to that point of the story, but I don't think that was a decided factor of his character prior to that being said in the story, is what I'm saying, right? Because it didn't really reflect onto his character until those moments, personally. Chilchuk was always meant to be old, though. I mean, old doesn't mean kids, right?
Yeah. Like, I still read it as awkward social situation. I think that was the intent with it, so I didn't see any of that.
But yeah, it's like, and then Chilchak having the bow and a weapon when he like, you know, said he didn't fight and didn't do a lot of fighting stuff, and then suddenly having the bow and stuff. Jello pointed out stuff. It could be just me misunderstanding stuff, but Chilchak does grow to become one of my favorite party members in that kind of sense. I really enjoy what he adds to the story. Also, just another thing I really like about Dungeon Meshi is that it's not about love. You know?
No.
Obviously, love stories are great. Don't get me wrong, but like, he even says he can't even kill things with a bow, so why have it? Yeah,
to hit stuff with it from a distance.
But then there was that moment where that girl got fucking vine grabbed to the roof, and they had to grab someone else's crossbow to shoot them down instead of using Chilchak's bow if he had.
They didn't have it, man. It was dropped by where they died. I told you that.
I can't remember half the shit you say, bro.
It was when they died in like floor 6, I think it was, to the dragon that ate Fallen the first time. They fought the dragon again on a higher floor because it moved to a higher floor. But they left their initial supplies there where they died, and that's where Chilchuk's bow was. That's why he didn't have it until like the 70% mark. He literally just didn't have it anymore physically.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And so, what was it? I love how this story isn't about love. It's not about like romantic love, right? Like obviously there's like a lot of familial love and all this other shit, right? But like
and whatever Marcial and Fallen have going on.
Well, yeah, whatever that is, but it's just like it's not a focus, and it's just like subtext reading. I'm not saying they aren't gay, but I'm just saying it's just like, you know, it's not a like important part of the story in that kind of way. And because there's so many things where it's just like I saw Laos walk up to Marcial when she was having that dark moment. And like before he was like telling her about eating 3 meals a day and shit and all that important stuff, I could easily say like a lot of other authors would have like fucking softballed like I love you, especially after that like the succubus scene where he sees Marcial and he's like, oh no, I gotta kill her because this is gonna create a big misunderstanding.
Yeah, I see what you're going for. Yeah, I appreciate that wasn't we've said this before, I think, but like. So again, Beastars is also written by a woman, and I think Beastars does a good job of. It's a very sexual series, but like, I don't know, without that being necessarily the focus of it.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, the main character is actually really uncomfortable with sex, which I really like. Since his primary goal at first is like dating the cute bunny girl who's hypersexual and sexually liberated. It's fun. And it's kind of the same thing here where it's like a very mature, just like, that's not what this is about. It can be there if you want. It's not what this is about at all, which is nice.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Oh yeah. So it's funny. You can tell who read legal shit and scanlations because for some reason they translate Shuro as Sureyu in the
Frenchify him.
Wait, who the fuck's
that's Shuro. That's the Shuro. That's the useless guy who has a crush on Fallen and does nothing after that one good scene he has with Laos.
Yeah. Like I like his character a lot. I just wish there was a little bit more. Like there's a lot of characters that are like orbiting around the main party that it's just like I'm just like Thistle and Cecil. And then there's like the official translation for Cecil. They didn't know what Cecil's gender was, so they just
that was just fucking weird.
Yeah.
Turns out to be a fake name. No, I think it is his real name. He was just given it after he was purchased as an elven child. Like, it wasn't his given name at birth, but it's been his name for like 1,000 years. Like, it's his name. This is something small. I really like, I don't think I'd call Cecil super interesting on his own merit, but like, I really like how he wasn't diplomacied. I like how he was just crazy. Like, I thought that was good, actually.
Yeah. There's a lot of things like that where it's just like I feel like there's a lot of steps that a normal story would take, and it's just like, wow. And it not in a way, they don't like diverge it in a way that's like, oh, they're doing this to subvert the normal expectations. It's like, no, everything they do just feels very natural. It's not like they don't like make the story not about love, or like, you know, they don't diplomatize the villain because it's just like, oh, I'm trying to do something different. It's like, no, it just feels very like natural, and this is just the story they wanted to sell right off the bat, right? Like, but yeah.
Love that fucking scene where he's like, I'll even let you choose which dragon destroys you. Oh, really? Oh, you are deeply unpleasant. I have changed my mind.
Laos is such a good, just POV protagonist character, right?
He's great. So who's your favorite party member? Let's just ask a simple question to get started.
It's such a hard thing to answer. Cause like I feel like Laos is just so fucking solid, and it's just the main
really
pillar of the entire series, right? That like I like Chilchak as like a side. If I had to pick a second, it's Chilchak, but like Laos, easy, like it's great.
I think Laos is the best character of the party, and it's always nice to see the main character
actually
be the best character.
Yeah, same as someone in the comments just said, mine's Marcial. I feel a connection to her.
Yeah, like there's no real wrong answers except for maybe one.
There's one wrong answer. I fold my arms.
And so like just Laos.
So Bo's Fugi on my screen just had its mouth open for like 10 seconds saying nothing after. I know mine's just delayed, but to me it looked like there's one wrong answer and Bo just doing a surprised Pikachu offended face at me.
No, there are a little bit of negative opinions of Itsumi, or however you pronounce it. I don't think she is egregious. I don't think she detracts from the story at all. But yeah, like she has very good moments, and then some moments that I want to, rather.
Yeah, I wanna save my negativity for later because I want this to be more positive as long as I can keep it there.
Yeah. What monster was your guys' favorite?
The fucking. I mean, technically the lion. I think he's a great villain, but the armor is really cool. It's the first moment where I'm like, oh, this series got a little chili pepper in it.
Like it's so
I like the treasure bugs.
Yeah, I was about to say the treasure bugs are really neat, and how the treasure bugs like go into mimics, and then like it's like eat the insides of mimics, and then people open the chests and it's mimic bugs, and just like
treasure bugs are really good.
Everything about that is just like it's those two things are such a window into the possibilities of like this series. The dungeon cleaners are a good answer as well. Like,
dungeon cleaners are such a mushishi fucking monster. I love that. Any creature that is some small form of mollusk or crab, I thought was really cool. This author loved making shit weird mollusks.
It's look, dude, crabs. Everyone comes and will eventually be crab, right? The nightmares were very interesting in the fact of they were used very well as like a narrative device, right? Of just Laos entering Marcial's dream, and then like, you know, the first hints at what her greater deal was, right?
Yeah, that was good. Marcial is also really excellent. Like, I mean, Marcial and Laos they're the two protagonists. They just are.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny to me how much more important those two are than the other three party members. Like, it's fine.
Yeah, and just like because like you see like there's the book there that the dungeon master like is using, and then there's like her deal about outliving stuff. Because I never considered the fact that she could have just be like half tall man, half elf, because she's the first elf you see in the series, right? So it's just like you were like, she is the standard elf, right? But you start seeing more and more of these people, and now I look back and I go, I can see her facial features compared to all the other elves, and I can see, yeah, I can understand why she looks.
She's like, also cute as hell.
Yeah, more round.
Look. Do you know how long it's been since I've read a manga with any flavor of Jello girl in it?
Yeah,
and it's been a long fucking time.
They're coming out with so many Marcel figures. Like they're just like, yes, here you go.
She's less androgynous than the full elves. I gotta be honest, I kind of got like so confused with how androgynous they were so many times, because like more than half of them I misgendered until they finally got a gender drop. But for some reason, Sissel was the one that the translation got wrong, even though I thought Sissel was a boy the first time he showed up.
Like, I think my favorite character outside of like the core like main party is probably Mithrin. Not because like any like greatness. It's just that every scene that character is in, just from action to just like interactions to everything about them, was just so entertaining. Like, I could read an entire series of just Mithrin and Kabru just doing their things, right? And I think Kabru would have been probably one of my favorite characters if he was more evil. Probably.
Yeah.
But no, like a lot of the monsters and stuff were just fun.
Mithrin, Mithrin, I think, is probably the next best character after the two leads, the winged lion, because he's such a good, like, the series does such a good job, again, ramping up to the danger of the winged lion, and all of the demons, because you get to meet Sissel, and Sissel's like clearly in the like middle of being crazy, and then it's very cool that Mithrin's like, yeah, here's my deal, and it's pretty fucked up and bad, and it's like, oh, this is, it's just like I'm leftover scraps or whatever, and I have a cool power, and the fact of like your desires have been eaten to the point that you're like, you basically need full-time hospice care from at least one person is like such a real consequence that I really love that.
Like, and the way they explore Mithrin's story before you see like Laos and everyone interact with like the demon of the dungeon is just such great, like such a good way to create dramatic irony, because Laos is just like, oh, I'm Laos, I'm gonna, like, okay, winged lion, I'll free you, yeah, I'll defeat this, like, I'll defeat Cecil and stuff, and it's just like, yeah, and you're just like, no, little German boy, do not talk to the book.
I also I just want to say that I really like Chilchuck specifically. I'm glad I have his neck thingy. Chilchuck, he's very like unimportant in the grand scheme of things, but I really like him as a way to round out the party, because I grew up in an era of webcomics, and everybody was doing Black Mage from 8-Bit Theater. Everybody wanted the comedy villain party member who's like a little more amoral and a little evil. And I love the way that Chilchuck, I'm not going to say subverts that, but is like, oh yeah, no, I'm here for money. But like, it's a job, and he doesn't mean it in a callous way or anything. He's just like, yeah, no, the reason I went with Laios is because he paid me up front. And like everything you learn about Chilchuck starts as what I would call the trope of like the shifty rogue, but then it's like they always end up justified in really interesting ways. So like he's like, yeah, no, you have to pay me up front. I don't accept it. Why am I like that? Because I once got fucking jebaited into getting like being used as human living bait by people who don't consider halflings actually like full-fledged people. Yeah. And that happens a lot. So I started a halfling organization and a union, and now we're really shitty to everyone because you guys were shitty to us and we need to fucking protect our own. And it's like, that's so interesting, actually. I love that. Yeah. Like, I don't know, it makes Chilchuck a really cool character to me. Yeah. And I love his chapter where he's like, I feel terrible that maybe the reason we're even in this dungeon again is because I said I would go with Laios, and that might have been the catalyst for him actually going. He might not have gone on his own. And like Chilchuck thinks about a lot of things in ways that I find really interesting and very grounded. And then the best part is the whole time, I think this is probably one of the things I put in as one of those think about it questions was like, is there anything about the series that surprised you? First of all, I thought Fallen was just going to be fucking dead all the way from minute one. And was really surprised by all the Chimera shit, but was so delighted by the sequence of Marcille is the one who doesn't want to eat any of this gross dungeon shit. Marcille seems like the goody two-shoes honor student of the party.
Just a black magic bullshit, right?
And Chilchuck's the one who's like, oh yeah, I don't fight. I do this for money. And then the longer everyone gets used to that shit, suddenly Marcille's like, okay, so I can res her, but none of you can tell the cops. I use super evil magic. And like everyone is like, what the fuck? And it's like such a good bait and switch of like, it's such a great exploration of the differences in the character's morality. And also, probably my favorite single visual gag in the entire series is Marcille being like, well, let me defend myself. I know it's called evil magic, but it's only that, like, it's legally illegal, but like, you know, it's not actually inherently bad, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, you really should never tell anyone what happened here today. Otherwise, we're all going to go to super jail. And Chilchuck has these two reaction faces of like, and then he's just drinking while zoning out. And he goes, well, what's done is done, I guess.
One also detail is the way they talk about like the elf legal system and how it doesn't benefit the other races, like other short-lived races, because they take their time with stuff too much that you're just gonna age and die before they actually make a verdict.
Yeah, and this is another thing I can compare to Silver Spoon. So Silver Spoon, I really like it when any kind of series has, I don't want to call it a boss fight, but like a general term for like a conflict and encounter that's extremely non-standard. So Silver Spoon has this big arc that's making a pizza, and it made me cry because the Silver Spoon takes place at this I don't know why my words I want to say archaeological agriculture, that's it, agricultural school, where it's like a big farming school, and no one out there, they've all lived in the sticks, so they haven't had like pizza delivery places out there. So everyone's like, yeah, maybe like one time I had a slice of pizza, and the maker just from the city, and he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? We have to make pizza. So he has to personally go around, and it's like, well, we've got all the ingredients, I just have to make it. But like, they don't give away the shit that they make at the school, they sell it, and he doesn't have any money. So they're like, yeah, if you raise all these things, if you make the cheese, if you do all these like Bethesda RPG quests to get each of these pieces, then you can make this pizza. And one of them, and the key one, is they want like some ham or pepperoni on it. So it's like, we're gonna have to get a pig. And he's just like, oh, we'll go buy some bacon. And they're like, oh, we have pigs here. You can raise and slaughter the runt of the litter if you want. And he's like, I have to raise a full pig for months. And like, yeah, we're not just going to give you a pig and kill it for one pizza, you idiot. That's expensive. So he and some friends take this pig, and they're like, don't name it, you're going to get attached. He's like, we'll call it Pork Chop to know that we're going to kill it. And obviously he gets attached, and they have to kill it. And because it's Hiromu Arakawa, it's like about food chains and shit. Yeah. And then because he's done so many quests, at the end of this big thing, everybody the entire school has now heard about this pizza, and it turns into this big scale pizza party, but like only he and his friends get like the one pizza made with pork chop on it, and they all eat it, and he's like crying, and he's like, it's delicious. Oh my God, it's so good. This is the best pizza I've ever had. And like, it was so like getting to that point was so emotional that like I cried, and I was like, I love this as like an arc, and this being the finale. And for me, getting to the dungeon and killing the dragon, whatever, but the point where they had to dig through the dragon's owl pellet and bone by bone reassemble Fallen, I was like, this is such a fucked up and interesting thing you have to do in exchange of getting your sister back.
This series is just like, haha, little cooking adventures, and then people get fucking dropped onto the ground, their fucking limbs mangled, slit throats, bone reconstruction. This series is dark. Like, you know, it's like,
again, I was just
away.
saying this. I was just saying this on the In Stars in Time thing, where I'm like, I don't understand how people get blindsided by things getting dark when the series opens up with like, here's these guys who let people die over and over again for money and to res them, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is gonna get really dark, isn't it? And yeah, they get to fucking like the fucking conceit of the story is going down and resing your dead sibling.
Yeah, like I know, but it's just like this thing of like there's degrees of like brutality, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Like most shows that do like, oh, you fantasy die and you're on the ground and you get rezzed, right? That's fine, right? But it's just like not everything goes to the length of like Dungeon Meshi and then like Golden Kamui, where it's like bare face door. Or
that is true.
or like actually showing someone slitting a throat, right? Most things would probably like turn away from that, right? Like,
you're right. I agree. I do really like how the deaths in this series are usually pretty brutal, except that one time Izutsumi has a fucking heart attack as a gag, which was dumb as hell. But like I love the fight when everyone's like hanging out and then Fallen just kills like 80% of the people there. Like that was really cool. Kabru killing the corpse hunters was like, man, okay. I've just said a lot of good things. Can I talk about Kabru? Can I talk about how much I don't like Kabru?
How much I want to like Kabru more?
How much I want to? You don't get it.
I get
you. Get it.
I get it.
So, I love nothing more than the Gary Oak in a series. I love the guy who's been like dogging you and showing up again, the junior troopa, eventually ascending to like one of the final bosses or some flavor of antagonist. And I love that Kabru shows up and he's like exactly the opposite of Laios in every way. He sucks in the dungeon. He gets introduced by dying twice.
Yeah.
And then I was like, what is this guy's deal? And then he wakes up and kills the corpse guys and he's like, he has this great introduction scene where he's like, and it's my pick for my least favorite panel in the series after finishing it. Actually,
the fish.
No, the one where Kabru's like they do this like they're thinking about like, okay, well, who helped us the first time and like who rezzed us, because they took all our food, which is weird, but they didn't take our other stuff. That's kind of unusual. And his party susses out it was probably Laios's crew. And then there's this thing where he's like, oh, the Toldens, huh? And it like it's this big, more than a third of the page, like Death Note zoom in on his weird expression, and he's just like, I've been waiting for someone to unmask them. And at that point in the story, I'm like, ooh, so this guy is bad at dungeon, but he's good at person, which is great because that's the opposite of Laios. And like, what's the deal with the Toldens? Are like, so is Fallen's got weird ghost powers? Is she connected to the dungeon? Is she like a reincarnation of someone in the dungeon? Does she have some relation to the lunatic magician or whatever the fanlations called that? Like, what's the deal? Are they're from a different country and we don't know their backstory at this point? Are they descendants of the Golden Country? Are they royals from another place that like ran away and Kabru's after them? Maybe they have a bounty on their head. Like, so many ways it could go. But and it turns out what he meant was I wonder why these people who aren't after money go into the dungeon. And the answer is just, they think the dungeon is neat. And like that is the most fake out, no intrigue bullshit I have been handed in a while.
He's so he is so good. And then it just kind of like reels back on like what his initial kind of like character concept was. And I'm like, no, please, dude, I wish you went full fucking throttle. Right.
And like I didn't need him to be like a villain or anything, but I needed him to be an antagonistic force to not just a foil, because like what ends up happening is every scene he's with Laos, it's just like Laos being like, what a cool guy, and him being like, I'm gonna have to kill him. And I'm like waiting for this shoe to drop. And it never drops the whole series. The only two things Kabru does in the entire series are he pushes Mithrin down to the 6th floor, which is ridiculous by the fucking way. And they just skip the whole dungeon. And he takes care of Mithrin. And then the one time he separates Laos's party from the Canaries, all Kabru does is push people off of cliffs twice. And he doesn't do anything else. And also, his whole party, by the way, what the fuck? Why do they exist? Like, literally, why do they exist?
It's this thing of, like, Kabru's character was almost so much of, like, that. Because I know we're looking for the same thing. Right, and I know what you're talking about, and it's just like it just missed that mark. And I'm just like, God, dude, and that's what the personal frustration is. And I feel like a lot of that comes from like my personal theory about certain things, because I feel like at the end, did anyone else feel like the ending was a little bit rushed?
Yes.
So basically,
just a little bit, but yeah,
just a little bit. My personal kind of theory about stuff like Kabru's like story arc ending the way it was, right, and just everything kind of like that at the end, is because obviously they've been kind of getting the anime deal for like a while, but the mangaka was very insistent on the fact that the anime doesn't start until the manga is finished, right? And I think obviously I can't remember when the anime was announced, right? But it's
like a year and a half ago, maybe. Yeah. So it's probably been in development for 2-3 years.
And I think they gave the go-ahead to start the anime because they were like, yeah, I'm going to be finished soon. But they didn't meet the pace they were actually expecting, right? And thus the story had to change to finish before the anime came out. Because the manga finished back in September. The anime came out this month, right?
Yeah, and I do think that the whole... Yeah. I don't know how many episodes the Meshi anime is going to be, but you could easily cover all of this in like 24, probably 12 if you hoofed it, but I think it should be like 24 episodes. Mm-hmm. So it's like definitely going to be one season. And I totally get that from the author, but like I could feel it just a little bit. And again, actually Silver Spoon had, for different reasons, the author had to take care of her alien father, but Silver Spoon's ending is like fucked. It's like the pacing is whack.
Like,
and real quick, because someone did mention it, part of the reason I dislike Kabru so much, because I do at least like him hanging out with Mithrin, like the best character. Yeah. And his party, I don't get it. Like, I don't understand what the author was thinking his party's deal was or why they were there. And you guys know me. I'm Mr. Economical storytelling. And like, especially the shit with like the Eastern girl who that's their word, not mine. The Eastern girl who like obviously has a crush on him, and there's like a couple panels of like, oh, clearly she's into him, but like, and he's like, you know what I was expecting from Kabru? I was expecting some flavor of less crazy on the outside Lieutenant Surumi. Yeah. I wanted a guy who knew how to manipulate people and how to talk to them. And like, he's doing the shit where it's like, oh, I know exactly how to get this girl out of this thinks we're all mermen spell. I'll kiss her on the mouth. And then he acts like that's nothing, which like clearly to her, that's huge. Right. And I'm like waiting for her to do something or for that to come up and be like, oh, this is just how the author's introducing him being really good at manipulating people. And instead, his whole party never matters, and they're just shuffled off screen when the Canaries show up. And then there's this one, and to me, I think this was the moment I was like, Kabru needs to be a villain or this character shouldn't exist, where he's and I think this was supposed to be a joke, but it was such a small moment that really fucked with me, where I don't remember exactly where this happens, but at some point the Canaries are like, if you don't cooperate with us, we'll kill these guys who they assume are part of Kabru's party.
Yeah.
And it's Shuro and the cute dwarf girl, who actually I really like her. I think she's a really good character too. And he's like, oh, that's not my party. I don't really care about them, but I won't let them know that because negotiating. And he, at some point, pretty close to that moment, someone mentions him having to like diplomatically eat monster food to get close to Laios, and he's like, even if that were my party, and he's like thinking about, I think her name's Lynn or something, the girl who has a crush on him, and he's like, even if my party's lives were at stake, I don't know if I could eat monster shit for them. And you never see him interact with his party again, and I'm like, what is the deal with this? And this is my favorite example of why I think reading the World Guide made it worse for me, because I was like, everyone in that book gets a page, and that girl who has a crush on him has a page, and it's like, oh yeah, she like after Kabru's sad backstory and he got adopted, she was like the other, like they were raised as like next door neighbors for like 12 years or something, and I'm like, and he didn't give a shit about her? What's going on, man? Like, don't give me these snippets of backstory if they just make the characters worse, and also don't have this character there if nothing she does matters. Like, it's little stuff like that. Sorry, I've been talking for a while.
Yeah, there was some really good Kabru scenes, though. I think one of my favorites was when Mithrin and Kabru ran into those shrooms that like spawned copies of yourself, and his version of Mithrin in his mind was perfect. And it's just like,
that's the best Kabru scene.
Yeah, it's like he has such an attention to detail and just like watches people so much. And that, like, you know, it's just like that. It makes sense. It's just such a great little detail that I thought was like really fun, and just like I don't know. It's just like I get you. I get you so hard.
I think he had so much potential, and he really just like there was never a moment where Kabru, like, I was like, this is why he's here. It just never happened. I never understood why he was in the dungeon. I didn't understand why he got hard. I didn't understand why he like fell deeper than Laos's party, and like they were ahead of them sometimes, and they kept finding their campfires, and I was like, oh, have they gone somewhere further? But like maybe they got trapped by the lion or Sissel. Nope, that didn't happen. And I was just like, this is just oh, that's actually also important. I do think this is the other like flaw I think this author has as a storyteller, and this one's much less important, but a lot of little arcs of monsters and stuff happened in media res in a way that I think made the storytelling worse, where it's just like something is happening suddenly, and I was like, what? Did I skip a chapter? Did I miss something? And it happened multiple times, and if that's my inclination every time, then like that's not good. Like, and I always understood what she was trying to do afterwards. So like that Kabru scene where they're fighting the illusionary mermen and they all think they're mermen. That one, they're just like, Kabru's walking down the stairs on one spread, and then the next spread is him in the middle of fog, and he's like, where is everyone? I'm like, what? What happened? Did I skip a page? And that happened pretty frequently. That happened like 8 times across the whole series, and I was confused by it every time. I think it's worth noting.
Yeah. But no, I get you so hard. Like, so yeah, Kabru.
Yeah.
Because I always love characters like him so much. But yeah, like I think he was a really good foil for Laos, but at the end it was just like, you know, I feel like the story just needed to finish because of like the hard time limit that the artist, like the mangaka, gave themselves. That's just obviously just theorizing. There's no confirmed thing, like speculation, but that's what it feels like to me, right? And so yeah, like we haven't talked about Senshi a lot.
Senshi doesn't talk a lot.
Yeah, he doesn't talk a lot. I like him. I like him a lot. Obviously, he's the cook guy. The show in the manga would not exist without this nice dwarf man. and I think his backstory chapter was like really fun.
Yeah, I like that one a lot.
Like the whole idea of just like he didn't know if he ate dwarf meat or not, right? And just like the push of like you have to find out, or else this is gonna haunt you forever, right? Like
I will say again, just because I just complained about like did I miss a chapter? Maybe this is me. I was very confused at first by the Griffin versus Hippogriff thing. Like I get it in retrospect, but like I didn't really understand like the little hints like I guess the hints of this creature being a slightly different creature were dropped before we knew the changeling rules, or even that changelings were mushrooms in this universe, which I think was weird and it kind of threw me off. But yeah, the core of Senshi's backstory was really good. And then, okay, again, this is another thing that made me go, what the fuck, when I read the world guide. But it was like, I love Senshi's backstory. And I love that he's just like, yep, I'm a veteran adventurer. I've been here for about 10 years. And then the author is just like, in the world guide, yeah, actually, Senshi's been there for actually like 60 years. He just doesn't have a good sense of time. And I was like, what? And I think that was just because she was like, oh, actually, I need to, for the timeline to make sense retroactively, I need to move some things. So he was wrong. And I'm like, you can't do that. Like, come on.
Yeah, that's why I don't read extra stuff.
I know. I'm getting punished for it. But like, look, hey man, it was published, so now I'm critiquing it with the rest of your main story, and it's your fault.
Sometimes an author will give you numbers and whoops. Yeah, like it's a struggle. Like, hold on, I have the Bible.
You don't need to. I'm right. I'm 100% sure of this one. You don't have to check.
I thought
Since she used to like dog ears.
I love his design. It's a small thing, but I saw on Twitter. I haven't watched the anime, but obviously I follow ProZD on Twitter, and ProZD is doing the voice for Senshi. And one thing he talked about, which is the fact that Senshi doesn't have lip flaps. So he doesn't have to match the lip flaps when he speaks during the long monologues, which is very interesting. I just thought that was neat. But yeah. Yep, so she did since 60 years. Yeah. Fit the timeline. Yeah, timeline stuff be hard. I can understand that. And like part of me is like, because like we talk about this dramatic Skyrim music, but like we talked about how the world building in certain areas felt empty, and part of me thought in my brain of just like, I feel like that fits the story almost, because the story is about, you know, survival and eating, right? And it's just like, you don't have to world build more than you need, man, you know? It's very economical.
Foxhouse says, I did like that the monsters really felt like they became stronger as they went down levels. I agree with that.
Yeah. The rabbits.
Those are cool.
The rabbits were dope. Like it like the obvious Monty Python bit, right? Of just all that stuff.
Yeah.
And the solution is just like, as they went down, they were like, yeah, we're going to die, but we're going to die so that we can solve this problem. It was just like that desperation, right? And then the scene that Marcel is just like next to their corpses, and it's just like, oh.
Did you not think of like how I would feel surrounded by these? And like, that's a good scene in the moment, and then like 10 chapters later you're like, haha, this is probably the reason she was okay becoming the dungeon lord, actually.
I like the shift of like obviously you're like, oh, that Laos is gonna become the dungeon lord, and then it's just like it swaps over to Marcel, right? Imagine what would happen if Chilchak became the dungeon lord.
Probably every monster would just have a blonde wig on it. That's my other reason I like Chilchuk, is he's a fellow blonde enjoyer.
He's just like you. Oh man, like I think the stuff with the Golden Land was very interesting and sad. I always love sad immortality stories, I guess is the best way to put it. where the people down in the Golden Land couldn't eat, couldn't really taste anything, and were just doing the same thing over and over and over again. It's that kind of tragedy that I kind of enjoy, right?
I like that sort of tragedy. I'm a little confused about the logistic. Like, I assumed when they were in the Golden Land that they'd like fallen into some memory monster or something, like, and they were just like, no, they were there, and it's like,
where is it located in like relation to the dungeon and everything, right? Yeah,
like I guess they were just like, it's under the water, like Wind Waker Hyrule style later, because it rises up at the end, and it's like, okay, I mean, I guess a dungeon could do that. It's just, I don't know, I felt it was a little strange.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be sectioned off from the rest to keep it separate from both the monsters and people coming in there and trying to hide it all away. And, like, also keep them from escaping.
Someone says, I was also confused on the living paintings and Sissel remembering stuff from them for some reason. I assume that was just actually Sissel making the rounds through the paintings, to be honest. But, like, I thought that was a cool enough way to introduce the party to Sissel the first time that I was like, I'll allow this, whatever, this is weird. That didn't bother me as much as the Golden Land stuff.
It's such a like weird, like almost X-Files Twilight Zone-esque episode of just like going into these paintings and then someone remembers you from the other paintings and stuff, you know?
Why am I calling him Sissel? Because that's his name in the official translation, which is really funny because, again, I actually think they fucked up because in the World Guide, which came out after most of the series, there's a description that they had to translate because there's no way they could have just ignored this and like kind of just lied and made it something else, which is like, oh yeah, Sissel was named after the thistle plant, which is the color of his eyes. So they wanted something that sounded like thistle, and it's like, hey, translator, it sounds like you are realizing that the official translation was supposed to be thistle, which is what the fanlations did, and you fucked up and now have to awkwardly justify it. Oops.
God, I feel like we're gonna learn a lot about localization throughout this book club, you know? Just from like One Piece.
I've already localized things officially. I know what the deal is.
Okay, sir. Maybe I'm gonna learn something about localization.
Maybe you plebes might learn something.
There's a little bit of ring to it. Yeah, but you read Sissel and then you say Sissel. Bro, look, man. We read officially, okay? Like good little boys. So appreciate us. Though, you know, I own 12 physical volumes behind me. But yeah, God, what are some other stuff we haven't like really approached about? Besides the black cat in the room.
I'm waiting.
Yeah, I know.
I like everything to do with Fallen. I love the escalation of like, oops, she's a chimera thing now.
I loved what you said in like one of our text chats of just like Fallon is very interesting because you learn about her through how everyone else reacts about her.
Yeah, I don't know where this is from, but there's a pretty common saying for character design where like character writing, where the three ways you can show character are what a character says, what a character does, and what others say about a character. And Fallen is almost exclusively the third one. And it's done in like a good, like I would say Kingdom Hearts does that third one very badly, where your friends are always off screen. It's like, we are friends. And it's just like, I don't believe you. But everyone's got kind of a different take on Fallen, and yet it's always positive. And I love that when you do get to see her, she's so much like Laos, and like, but she's just different enough to like get by in society where people like her more, and I think that's really funny.
I
did like that with Shiro and like all of the things that he says he doesn't like about Laos, and it's like, and then immediately just like, it's like, I'm jealous of you because this is what your sister's like, and you can relate to her a lot more.
Shiro sucks so bad. He's such a fucking loser.
Yeah.
Look, man, he came into that dungeon stubble and then like kind of like hungry as shit, and I was like, oh, this is about to get interesting, and then nah.
I love at the ending where like also there's like to the author's credit, like I feel like some of the things that with like the Chilchuck stuff where we're like, I don't know if this was decided until later or not. I feel like part of the reason for that is clearly some of the shit with Marcille and Laos and Fallen is decided from fucking minute one. Like, like the thing Laos turns into at the end comes up all the time. It's in his diary.
He talks about animals with 3 heads and how cool it is constantly.
And like there's this great little moment where someone's like asking Fallen in a flash. I think it's Marcille. It's like, what's your brother like? And she's like, I love my brother. Why? What's he like? He does a really great impression of a dog, which is like such a funny, weird thing for her to say. But then later, like 7 chapters later, he scares animals by doing this dead on perfect dog bark impression. It's like little things like that where it's and a lot of like Marcille's stuff. And I feel like maybe this was Bo or Aloha, or maybe I just saw this on a Tumblr post somewhere because I did not notice this. But I love. So Marcille's got her rubber banding aging, where she like sometimes is way older than she looks, sometimes way younger, and that's been a hard childhood because of that. And she's only 50, which like Bo and I did the math, and that makes her like what, fucking 12 in human years or something really uncomfortable. But someone pointed out that Marcille like is just stuck in a completely state of childhood. In the way she reacts to everything. And if you read her that way, she really is like super childish the whole time. Like she's very like, good things are good and you should do good things. These are the rules. I'm a straight A student. And like the one time where she's like a hypocrite about that with dark magic, she's like, no, I checked and I'm right. And like her goal of like changing all the races so they age the same way is like stupid and impossible, and that's like a little kid genie wish, which I think is really interesting. Also, one of my favorite gags in the series is after she gets her witch costume and then everyone just dunks on it when she turns back and they're like, what are you fucking wearing? She's like, I think it's kind of cool.
Her fucking succubus fantasy where it's just the fucking guy with the eye patch and the shoujo flowers appearing.
I love that.
I know you do.
Look, the fact that she's so like, I love characters who are like, I love love and I love to love love, and she's fucking hovering around her party members like, ooh, what's your wife like? What's your type? Who is your first love?
They were trying to talk to her when she was being all edgy and evil, and then Chilljack's just like, I'll let you meet my wife, and she was like, oh, really?
It was really good.
I love that for it.
Yeah.
Resolution to all that.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, I love that shit because it's so fucking funny. And I love, like, someone else had this theory that was like, maybe part of the reason that Marcille is like, obviously the reason she gets into that stupid dumb manga she's really into is she loves that there's one character who's a half-elf and she relates to them. And part of the reason she's so into romance is like, that's something that, as far as she's concerned, she really wants, but part of her knows she can never have because she watched her mom fail to have a like an actual lifelong romance with her dad. And she's like, oh, tell me about like, have you ever been in love? Did it work out for you? I want to hear about that. And I love that. I think that's so deeply interesting.
Yeah. God. Just the entire... Yeah.
I just wanted to mention in terms of how, like, biology stuff comes up throughout the series, and thinking about how, like, monsters work is more than just, oh, these are cool things that happen to them. No, they need to make sense. I did really like that they brought up that, like, a half-elf would be sterile, and it would make sense that a lot of people bring it up as, like, something they assume is important. Never get confirmation either way if it's important or not for her, but it makes sense that it gets brought up when it does, and I like that it was there because it never really comes up in anything else.
Yeah. God.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, no, Fox Owl being good at reading as they are skimming the end to to get to the finish line of this. Yes, that is the curse. That you get that on like the last page. You get confirmation, which is funny as hell.
Like, God, I love that so much.
That's a great curse, and it's like it's so funny that it's such a good curse for a king to have, and I bet Laios is so upset about it.
Yeah, like fucking the dungeon feeding on desires, I think, is a very interesting thing that I love. Right.
I specifically love that weird specific desires are tastier and more interesting.
Yeah, it's the great shit. It's like, oh man, everyone wants $1 million. Only few people want, like, I don't know, their specific fetish recreated or some shit. I don't know, man. I'll eat that shit up. God.
Yeah.
That's why I really dungeon.
I love the Winged Lion as a villain. Yeah. He's such a good villain. And I love how it, like, I don't think him being the villain is like a huge surprise. Like the instant you hear about demons, the alarm bells are going off. But even so, like good twists and good new information are best when it retroactively makes other things scary. And like I didn't realize this immediately, but I was like, man, there's Winged Lion memorabilia all over the fucking dungeon. And like I bet like he's probably been like watching that shit. And I love that he's like such a good manipulator, but he's also like genuinely not the worst dude. Like he's just like at the end
he's very happy and like
yeah. He's a good demon. Right, he can understand what you want. He understands why you want what you want, right? Like, and it's just like it's not bad to want things, right? You know.
I also love the anytime an alien or interdimensional creature. I love whenever media is like humans are really good at food. Like that's like a thing we're uniquely good at that like no other animal has really mastered to any degree. And I love the idea of that being enticing to outside sentient creatures. So the lion being like, eating all these desires, it's mostly just I want to eat stuff. That's interesting. It's like I'll turn myself into a particle and get eaten. Okay, that was weird. Let's try eating something else. Oh my god, I'm eating and that panel of like the bug or whatever being like, I want food, and the winged lion being like, I'll try eating his desire, and he eats the thought bubble of I want food. I was like, I love that shit. That's some good use of the medium.
Yeah. Stuffy is literally so altruistic. Yeah, like, but like, you know, just as most of the people going into the dungeon, right, and have like altruistic desires, so does he, right? And so it's just like, I love it. They like the most like I don't see there was like a lot of generically evil characters other than like I'm the Shadow Governor and I'm an asshole. I'm a
again, I'm like, you know, they introduce. Like, this is what I'm talking about, where you get to some parts of the surface, I'm like, here's the Kabru half of the series, since he's, like, the B protagonist, clearly, since he must be, since we're spending so much time with him, and it would be a mistake if he weren't the B protagonist, and it's like, here's the governor, and he's afraid of the Western elves, which elves only live in the West, just call them elves. I know it doesn't matter, but it pisses me off anyway. And it's like, oh, also they're from the Central Continent, which is in the West, which is stupid. Anyway, it's like, oh, we don't want the elves to take over this place, and I'm like, I don't know. I'm kind of waiting for the hammer to drop on like, oh, there's like dwarf and elf conflict, and there's some like elf and orc conflict that we see with Marseille, and I'm like, oh, are they going to use this dungeon as a political excuse to annex the island? And like, will that piss the dwarves off because this is technically a dwarven country? And like, no, just none of that ever comes up. I assume the Canaries were like essentially like the FBI at first, like a special like secret Men in Black organization, but like no, they're very much just treated as like, I don't know, those are expendable garbage men. We just send them places, and like at no point is anyone scheming to take over the island in the chaos or anything. And I'm like, well, then if this is the case, don't show me the island's lord. Don't show me the shadow lord. Don't big up the Canaries if only one of them is ever going to matter. And like Mithrin's cool as shit, but like none of the other ones do anything.
Yeah. God. At least have like the Canaries go in, all of them kind of get murked except for Mithrin, and Mithrin just like, you, Kabru, funny man, you shall take care of me or something. Because I literally can't do this alone or something. Yeah, like, no, like, it's not about, that's definitely sure, it's not about politics. It's just like,
and like that's like it's fine to not be about politics. This is what I'm saying about like the macro world being bad and the micro being really good. Like and that one scene with Fallen and like Marcial in the past with like the terrarium, like the literal like magical dungeon terrarium where you could make a micro dungeon is so cool. I love that.
Well, I love it. Oh God. I love this shit so much. It's just the dungeon is just such a cool setting. I just absolutely adore it. And I'm so glad Dungeon Meshi when the anime is coming out, because maybe those poor saps who are still playing D&D 5e may get actual good inspiration for what they're doing. But yeah, my subtle call out post.
The author loves to introduce large groups of interestingly designed characters that don't matter, like Shuro's group, Kabru's group, and the Canaries. You're right. It's, that's kind of a unique problem of being a really great character designer, isn't it? Is that like when all of your character designs are so good that they look like they have main character syndrome. If you're not good at managing expectations and character weight, introducing them, you can create these false expectations just because the characters look so cool. Oh, also, I'm sorry to keep harping on shit, but like little things like the term dark elf gets thrown around a few times, and I was like, is that like drow, like a separate sect of elves? Are those like the Eastern elves? My brain starts thinking about stuff, and it comes up like twice, and then there's like 2 or 3 elves who have like just coal black skin or like slightly darker skin. I'm like, are these dark elves? Is that one like that one hot tan elf? Is she like a mix between a drow and a normal elf? And like, no,
Sorry. No, go on.
And then the world guide is just like, dark elf is just a term that it's kind of archaic that people use to mean mean elves. And it's like, no, it isn't. That's not what dark elf means, you fucking freak.
Because you see them. I just had a funny thought about how, like, how Kabru was going through, like, Mithrin's backstory and then, like, culling characters and all this other stuff and making it more simple. Imagine, like, they do that in the story and then the characters just appear like that because Kabru's just like, no, they don't matter, dude. Don't worry about it. So in the general story and manga itself, the characters start looking more generic just to filter that stuff.
Kabru is just the self-insert of this mangaka's editor.
Oh man,
what are your thoughts on the mirror chapter?
The mirror chapter. What are you talking about?
I don't remember a mirror chapter. I remember they mentioned a mirror monster once or twice.
Yeah, there was a mirror. There was mentioned. I keep hearing reference of this gender bend thing, and I don't know what y'all are talking about. I know the changeling stuff, but I know the doppelganger with the...
It was like an extra. Some of those aren't included in the versions we read, and some stuff, like, it's tough because I've seen things by the author like on Tumblr that are just like supplementary material and like things in the world guide. The mirror gets mentioned in the main manga, but I don't think it's there. It's not in the official release, at least.
Okay, yeah, because I do not remember what you guys are talking about. So
yeah.
Physical ones only have the Misk monster tales. Yeah, like that's the stuff I've like somewhat read. Yeah. Still don't get the entire package. That's why you don't buy manga. Who the fuck are you? What? Who? That's why you don't buy manga. You realize what this is, right? A manga book club? Look, dude, I don't think you need every single little piece of something that comes out of a story, right? And that's the whole thing I was talking about the world guide. I'm probably not going to buy the world guide, right? Because if I need these little extra little bits to understand the story, right, then it doesn't matter. When I buy something like a manga or anything, I just want the story for the most part. Me personally.
The world guide didn't matter, but the Ace novels did.
That was for research. Of like, you know,
you say that like we're not watching all the One Piece movies again.
Yeah, I know.
Ye who
Aloha, we just
houses.
watched a movie. We just watched the movie where Aokiji shows up every other scene to be like, I'm gonna be a problem.
Look, let's,
you missed it.
I'm gonna be honest though. Reading the Ace novels was a funny bit though. It's a funny joke.
That is true.
That is joke. What's so funny about reading the world guide, huh? Nothing. It's sad.
No, I don't. I wouldn't recommend it. It was a mistake.
Yeah. Meanwhile,
but now I know it was a mistake.
I got to look people in the eye and go, look at this yaoi novel.
If I watch, I think Bo and I probably both we've seen movie 6 like 3 times each, probably at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. God.
Anyway,
let me think of like.
I just had some other small thing that I liked. That's the problem is like we mentioned this when talking about this. I even mentioned I was like, I want you guys to start doing most of the talking, which never happens because I'm me. But so many of the things that are cool in this series are just things you point at and go, that's cool, and there's no like deeper thing to talk about.
We've talked about this in One Piece, and so if you're joining us because you didn't watch One Piece and you like this, it is way easier content-wise, especially like right here where we're talking for like 2 or 3 hours about something. It's way easier to talk about things that missed the mark or we would have done differently than it is, oh, this was good. Because it's like Bo described it as the art school problem, where it's just like it's a lot easier to talk about critiquing things than just be like, this was good. Because it's just like at the end of the day, there's no changes, no anything, and you just go, this was good, and we're just bring it back up, right? Versus the critiques, which is like more original content and opinions that you won't see elsewhere, right? So yeah, so just as context, because you know, I know a lot of people, especially in One Piece, sometimes we're like, why are you guys reading if you hate it so much? And it's just like it's not about that, right? This is the book club for discussion, and discussion will be positive and discussion will be negative sometimes. It's not, we can't purely be positive, just like we are never purely negative, right? Even in One Piece, we tried to point out very positive things about it. So yeah,
like even like fucking, we say this all the time, but the early One Piece makes me go, oh, I liked One Piece for a little while. And like the very first One Piece movie is like 50 minutes long, and it's so simple and it's so cute and good and like dumb in a fun adventure way. And I was like, oh, One Piece can be good. And then we like, you know, a couple movies later, it's like just Robin's boobs jiggling while Zoro's like, she's a woman. It's just exhausting.
Yeah. And so just preferencing that because, you know, just stuff. Because I'm trying to think of like what we haven't talked about. We've talked about monsters. We've talked about the dungeon and the desires, the demons, the cop. We've talked about almost every character except for the cat. And that's why, because I know a lot, Jello looked at all the questions that he asked and saw that a lot of people like the cat, right? And was just like, oh no. The ending, I mean, the ending, we can talk at the ending. I've already talked about how it felt like a little bit rushed, but like, I feel like talking about the characters. So I feel like this is a good segue to talk about the cat. Now, right? The cat, right? I've been waiting because I got something to say. I've already read what you said in the comment thing, and I kind of understand what you're talking about, because your whole thing was that it's interesting to see a character with no desires at the end of everything, right? In a series about desires, right? And so while I think the character, I like the design, I think it's interesting to see a different take on what it's like to have a character that's half monster, half person, much like Fallen, right? And seeing how a person like that can live in society, right? And Izuku has a lot of fight choreography, no one else does, so she's good. Like,
speaking entirely physically,
yeah,
Izitsumi is such a good cat girl. Like, she, the way she's drawn, the way she moves around is cool to look at. She's drawn really well. I like that she's like unapologetically like just like furry in an uncomfortable way, and
Yeah.
it's like her design is objectively really good.
I was trying to like combine fur and boobies and then just came up with Furbies.
Boobies? Oh.
And I was like, that's something already. No, I like, and so she introduces a very interesting thing where it's just like at that point in the story, Marcille already has somewhat like already swallowed her pride in the fact of like, oh, I won't eat these certain things, and so it's interesting to see another character that is so picky about eating and all that stuff.
Yeah,
right?
I said this. It's like I set myself up for a fucking Always Sunny title card drop where at the start of this I was like, I'm so excited to read about the cat girl. Yeah. I know about the other 4 party members because I've seen Dungeon Meshi's been around for a long time, and I tried to read it once before, but I didn't get to the armor chapter, so I stopped. And I was like, oh, I know the halflings bit. Marcille is cute as hell. I know that the autistic man is really into monsters in a funny way that borders on fetishistic. That's funny. Mm-hmm. And I know that the dwarf like food and people like his panty shots. I'm excited to learn about the cat. And I wonder why I haven't learned about her personality. And then the Always Sunny titled card of just Izutsumi does not have a personality drops. And when she shows up, I was like, okay, great, here she is. And immediately they're like, here's some food. And she's like, I don't want to eat this, and drops some on the ground. I was like, oh, okay, she's going to be the one who's not okay with eating monsters in like a little kid kind of way. And then immediately Senshi is like, I am going to kick your ass if you don't eat that. And I'm like, this is great. This is a great new way to introduce conflict in a series about eating food, in a series that's so about eating food. Even the fucking boss fight with Fallon is like, we need to get all these rabbits, which will kill us, because we need to get her drunk and hungry. And also, side thing, I love that they were like, she probably hasn't been eating enough because biologically her mouth is really small and she can't consume enough calories to sustain that body, which is funny and interesting.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, so the new conflict is going to be that she's not okay with eating monsters for different reasons, or like, so I'm curious to see how they resolve this. And Senshi is like so immediately not cool with it. I'm like, she's going to have a bunch of problems with Senshi because he was like so rude to Marcille at first for being even moderately picky and being like, no shortcuts with magic. I hate magic, which by the way, that never made any sense and was stupid and got dropped. Don't know if any of you guys noticed that. And I was ready for that to be a problem, but then after that one chapter, it's just like fine. And everyone's just like, well, that's how she is. And I'm like, why are you cool with this? Why is Senshi cool with this? He would, like, the Senshi of 20 chapters ago would have not been cool with this at all. He would have lectured her every time. And that like bugged me because that was a missed character dynamic. And even in his journals, he's like, I do not like her. She is difficult. I'm like, man, that might have been something to explore. And I'm gonna do my best to explicitly keep things to the manga as it is for the reasons I don't like her in the story. And then I'm going to talk about the reasons in the world guide that I think make her even worse because they're canon. So they're there. I also, for what it's worth, maybe this is my own misreading because a lot of other people were like, she's so teenage cat girl. I assumed she was like 25 for most of the series just because everyone was adult and it didn't really matter. But no, she teenager. And then she's just out of the picture for like entire story arcs. Like, I hated that in the Golden Country, it's just like, oh, the part of you that's half monster is made docile because the monsters here are docile. That's cool, but that means she doesn't know what was going on, and she's just like not. They Frankied her. She's just like, I'll repair the ship, and she's like not there for a whole major arc. That's dumb. That's a huge missed opportunity. And like, wouldn't it have been fun if they made her into like really docile and like like where she can still talk and she's like, I love you guys. Like she's like hippied out, like she's on something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the party members like, this is really uncomfortable. And like maybe because she's more forthcoming, they learn something about her because she's half of her is compelled to serve humans. Like, I don't know. I think there were much more interesting uses instead of kicking her out of the story for an arc for like the sake of a cat joke. That was dumb.
Mm-hmm.
And then so immediately when you see this character, like so much of this series is like was subverting my expectations in good minor ways and sometimes bad ways with Kabru. But like I was waiting the instant Izutsumi shows up. She's like, I'm the standoffish anime character who does what I want and I don't care about others. And I'm like, okay, that's a very boring archetype that is always resolved in the same way. So when are we going to get the arc where you realize you have to help other people? And I'm expecting it to be like the first arc after they meet her. And it's not. Yeah. It's like 3 or 4 monsters later with the succubi, which are cool monsters. And I like that her succubi turns into like
the monster,
the cat. Like that was cool. That's, by the way, that's the only time they do anything good with the fact that she's half monster. And other than that, it's basically just an excuse to make her a cat girl. I just assumed cat girls were a race in this universe.
Bread Bunny, who had like a lot of good points, says, "Yeah, I definitely saw her more positively because this was a reread, right? And the knowledge of what she was meant to be doing. Yeah, like I can understand what you're saying, where it's just like you already know what the character's going towards, right? So you can read it kind of like and predict all this stuff and like kind of connect the dots, right? But as like a first time like reading thing, right, it feels very like jarring in a lot of cases, right?
Wait,
like,
are they not erased? No, she got fused. Like,
yeah,
they never even elaborate on this, by the way, where it's just like, yeah, I was fused with a monster at some point when I was like 6, and you don't get any more info about that. It's just an excuse to make her a cat girl.
Or like how common it is, or like, you know, because like when you see like they do the like the little chart where it's just like, this is what everyone looks like if they're different races. She's always a cat no matter what, right? She always got the cat ears, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, okay, so here's Lily the Happy Sheep brings up, she's basically the same as Chimera Fallen. That's the huge problem for me, is that the idea of now that the new goal is to rescue your Chimera sibling.
Yeah.
The idea of having a Chimera on your team and being like at no point do they observe something with Izutsumi and they're like, oh, that's a thing. That's how monster fusions work. We could use that to... When did that happen?
Since she talked about the egg and talked about how... talked about the Chimera stuff.
Oh, like, that doesn't count at all. That's just him going, here's why you're different, in case you were wondering why she can talk.
It is something, though, but yeah, it's not like as in-depth as it probably should have been, yeah.
I don't think that was how they got information about Fallen. That was Senshi going, I bet people are wondering why Fallen is no longer sapient, but Izutsumi can still talk.
Yeah. And
so there are different kinds of eggs, and it's like, okay, cool. And like, I don't know, I feel like there was so much more room to have fun with the fact that she's part monster, and like that never gets resolved. It never gets explored. So I don't understand why it got brought up into the story. Like, it's an excuse for her to travel with them to see the lunatic magician, but like the story keeps happening after that and she stays with them. And by her own admission, she doesn't really like any of the party members. And I was kind of expecting when Chilchuk's just like, why don't you leave? But like as the bait for her to be like, no, I won't leave. Let's be friends in like a story. And she's just like, okay. And she leaves. I don't understand why she didn't just leave afterwards. Like, I don't buy, like I did read, I think it was Bread Bunny's, like a couple of people were really into her. I don't agree with the idea of her being like an interesting character through the lens of like desires, where it's just like she's an interesting character because she has no motivation. It's like that's a terrible character trait.
It's this thing of like her role in the story, like in that sense of 1, fighting, and 2, like no desires, are filled by other characters in the cast, which is Kabru and Mithrin, right? Like imagine if Kabru got the scene where he got to cut Lau's head off, right? Or,
yeah, and oh my god, that would have been so good.
Yeah, exactly, right? Where it's just like there are other characters in the story that kind of fill those niches kind of already. And not like obviously it's a cool scene, right? But it's just like it's the efficiency part of me that I always talk about. Like you guys have seen me talk about One Piece and about how much I hate Fishman Island.
What really quick? What would Kabru's succubus be? Him killing Laios.
Oh man, what if it was himself? Because he wants to observe himself.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, but yeah.
Sorry, real quick, just to correct someone. Someone said that reminds me of a problem I had with the Fallen fight, which is that they got her down with chloroform, which was a weird choice. They didn't. He literally choked his sister to death.
Because like the amount of oxygen that large body needs and the small intake she has, because he talks about it a lot with how she isn't eating enough calories because her mouth isn't big enough to support her large body. Right, and so it's a similar case where it's just like her windpipe, due to it being a human mouth and the large chimera body, made it where him suffocating her was a lot easier. Yeah,
that to me is the best scene in the series. Is Laios having to kill Fallen. I think it's so interesting and so dark, and him going like, I've forced so many of my friends down this extremely difficult path, and they're in the dungeon for like a straight month just trying to survive, and him doing that is like, I don't know, it's a really cool scene. It's really dark. I liked it a lot. On that note, before I dovetail back to the cat, so do you remember how earlier I was like, I assumed that Kabru knew something about Fallen, and maybe Fallen had some connection to the dungeon, and that's why she had ghost magic, and that's why she was seeing the ghost citizens of the past city, which turned out just to be ghost magic that she and Laos just are efficient in because. But when Sissel returns to Fallen and turns her back into a chimera, I think that was a cool scene, but again, I think it's kind of a weird cheat, and I know he's insane. I get that he's insane. And I know that they're like, oh, one of the things that happens to dungeon lords is they have to be less picky as time goes on about who they hang out with because they get more and more insane, and anyone normal will just leave. So they end up having these like human-like chimeras. I was really confused, but in retrospect, because at first, when Sissel was like, there you are, talking to the red dragon and fusing her back, I assumed he was talking to Fallen. And like, maybe he knew her from like a past life or something. I don't know. It's fantasy. But no, he's just like, let me resurrect this dragon, which I think was very weird in retrospect, because we see him explicitly summon dragons who die, and he just makes new dragons at the drop of a hat. So why did he resurrect an old dragon? And then why wasn't he like, this has a woman attached to it who I've never met? This is fucking weird. Like, I thought that was very strange of him for someone who can just snap his fingers and make new dragons. Like, what attachment did he have to that red dragon?
Yeah.
I kind of think that's a cheat in retrospect. Oh yeah, Laios learning from Marcial magic. That was really cool. I wasn't expecting him to get any powers.
Yeah. I love how they do healing magic. It's just a funny little thing where it's just like Marcial's just like, but mine's so fast though, and it's like, no, but it's uncomfortable.
But it fucking hurts.
Yeah, and just like Laos like itching his leg, like after he had to have the like dragon bite it and stuff, was just so like, you know, it's just like seeing that like potential consequence from the actions and stuff. Because normally in the like series like this, I would see the resurrection thing and I'd go, ah, boo. But I feel like they execute it very well in this series, and play up the tragedy from it, so it doesn't feel like it's consequenceless, right? But yeah, back to the cat, right?
Back to the cat. Yeah.
One thing I do like about the cat's utilization is obviously any character could have filled this role, but I really liked at the ending how she was the character that was like had to go around and like talk to everyone like what are you doing after all this, huh? And just like I always enjoy it when it's like character has to go around this function and then like it basically like interact with like all the party. I know it's like very vague when I say it like that. I'm trying to find the right words to like describe what I'm like saying, but yeah, like and while any character do it, a character that has been kind of standoffish and far away from the party doing that, I feel like is a little bit more, because they're less busy than everyone else. So it's just like going around and then going, what are you doing? And then it's just like, oh, we're doing this cooking thing. And it's like, that's not what I meant.
I like using her at that end point as like her trying to figure these things out for herself as well. And I like, after all of the other characters being so caught up in the cooking and all of that, getting to Laos at the end, and he's immediately freaking out because he doesn't know what to do at that point. And she's like, no, I mean with cooking. Just to settle it down.
That was a really good one. Yeah. Like, but like, is that some of your cat opinions, Jello?
Someone just said, I think Izutsumi was there to keep the tone from getting too grim post-Faligan. She's not the comedic relief. Like, I just don't. I think that's Chilchuck and Marcille. I think they're the funny characters. And she, like, anytime... I just find she has no inner world at all. And, like, I get that maybe that's the influence of her being a literal cat girl. And, like, there's that panel where, like, all of them are thinking about something, and it's like, Marcille, think about book. Chilchuck, think about money. Laos, think about monster. And she's just got, like, a thought bubble of her own head. And it's like, this is boring. Like, it's boring to have a character who's traveling with us who only cares about herself and says almost nothing in most chapters. Like, that's a big issue, is what in the last third of the series, it gets so focused on Laos and Marcille as characters. The other three just never have dialogue. Senshi especially, like, in the whole, like, once you get his little, like, Griffin backstory arc, he barely talks ever again. It's really weird.
I really wish there was, like, more forward Senshi motion, right? Like, but like, it's this kind of thing of, like, I think about Dungeon Meshi, right? And if I like had to rate it, I'd rate it like a 7.5, 7.7.
Yeah, that's exactly where I'd put it.
And it's this kind of thing of, I would rather this series end with me wanting more than it going on forever and then me hating it.
Yeah,
right?
I really did not want to see anything else of this story after the end. I was like, that's a good ending. Also, someone says, and I genuinely think this is true, there is a chapter 0. It's like a concept of Dungeon Meshi, and it's like an alternate version, and it's more of a gag, where Izutsumi is there, and she's the point of view character, and she's very normal in that version, and she's just a cat girl, and she's like, what are we gonna do with this stuff? And the party keeps, like, this party, who she's new to, has been eating monsters, so they're like eating monster constantly, and she's just like, this is fucking weird, and that's the joke. And she's just there to be a protagonist and a cat girl. And I really do think that the author just went, I should probably have this whole party in there. I'm gonna bring her back. Uh-oh, I don't have any ideas to do with her. Oops. And also, again, your call if this counts or not. It's in the world guide. I was under the impression that, given the way Izutsumi acts, I was like, surely she must be, like, maybe Shiro's family uses her as an assassin or something, because she's clearly good at that, right? She's good at murder. And, like, she's one of the only characters who doesn't get killed by Fallen. And I was expecting her to be, like, you know, she's basically like a ninja. She's got a kunai. And maybe she's like really dangerous, so that's why they keep her on a shackle. And I was like, they must have just bought her from a freak show like a couple months ago, because she's got no rank and no one respects her. They don't even like refer to her, like they don't even let her interact with the young master or whatever.
Like there's that one thing where she's like that one Oni or whatever girl like thinks she's like, they're like friends and stuff, right? And I wish that was explored, right?
Yeah, and she's just like, I think of her as person who gives me food. Like, I think of her as a tool, and it's like, that makes me not like Izutsumi. There's not a person in there. And sorry, yeah, like, so I was like, surely she's just been part of this crew for like a little bit. No, she's been part of that crew for like 7 years, which is insane. And it's like, what do we do with this cat girl? Which canonically, the reason she was like, you know, that old lady, like the matron lady who's fawning over Shuro. She's like the mistress of the house also, and is like fucking his dad or something. There's like some intrigue that never comes up. It doesn't matter. And while Shiro's dad was drunk, he was like, "You like cats, right? I bought this cat girl from a carnival." And she's like, "What the fuck?" And just has to keep Izutsumi now. And reasonably, I would be like, this girl is really dangerous. Maybe we can train her to be an assassin, or this girl's really dangerous. Go away, or let's kill her. But instead, it's like, you will become part of our prince, who I love dearly's entourage, and one of his personal guards. But I trust you so little that after 2 years of training, I'm gonna put this paper spell on you. Which, that definitely only exists to give her a reason to interact with Marcille, to give her an excuse to talk to the party, by the way. It's extremely, like, it's transparent. And it's just like, why did she get that? It's like, oh, she was being unreasonable, so they gave her this curse. And it's like, why are you going through all this trouble to make a bodyguard? Like, this doesn't make any sense for anybody. Like, just get rid of this girl, turn her loose. And so, like, Izutsumi's story could have been one of, like, I've always been in shackles, and now I don't know what to do with my life. And you get a little of that at the end, right? Where she's like, I don't know what I want, because the base desires I want to fulfill require a social life that sucks, and I don't want to do that. So sometimes you have to do things that you don't want to do, which is like something you learn when you're 4, normally, but she's fucking 17. And I think they could have had Izutsumi's story be like, I have lost my shackles and I'm now with this party. And Chilchuck's like, why don't you just leave? And she's like, oh my God, I can. And then she leaves and she decides to come back and is like, I've decided to come back. This is the first choice I've gotten to make. Like, it could have been a story about choice and freedom. And they could have dovetailed in her being a picky eater and like maybe getting a little less picky over time with like, how can I get what I want while giving up a little bit to get what I want? So maybe she could have been like, yeah, I'll help you make this food. And like, she'll be like the person who's like, I don't like pickles, so I'm going to give you my pickle, but I'll eat this other ingredient that someone else doesn't like as much. Like, make her part of the food chain. I don't think they did anything with her. Yeah. She just feels like nothing. And then her revelation at the end is, I've never thought what I wanted. And it's like, wow, you're a boring character. And for the record, she's not nearly as actively bad as characters like Zoro and Sanji were in the latter half of One Piece. Like, she's not terrible. She's just an absence of character.
This thing of when the bar is so high, there's a lot farther you can fall.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it, right?
And also, I was like the whole time, I'm like, why is she here? What's she gonna do? And there's that really cool scene where Laios is like, kill me if I come back wrong. And she does. And I was like, that was awesome. But also, like, we know the party would have noticed in 2 sentences that was the lion, right? Like, you can't fake being Laios. We've literally seen people trying to fake being Laios earlier in the series, and it didn't work because they weren't enough of freaks with the, not changelings, the illusion things, like the ones Kabru ran into with Misurin as well. And, like, I just think she's a waste of panels. And that bothers me a lot in a series that's otherwise pretty tight.
So, just like, before I lose this comment, I've been waiting to say it.
Sorry.
Unironically, likes Ranger, it's fine. You Jello, this is Jello's manga book club, okay? I know what you're gonna do. You're gonna talk about the cat girl for an hour. It's fine. And then unironically likes Ranger said, I gotta say I like these book clubs. I just want to say this because it's very important for like just the book club in general. Right, I gotta say I like these book clubs. I feel like I can be a bit uncritical of things I enjoy at the beginning, and I appreciate being able to see where things can improve. Now it's kind of like, enrichment of the mind, right? Being critical of things, because it's just like, as a creative, it just kind of stimulates your own juices, right? And it's kind of like it's like being able to create something without having to actually do it yourself, right? It's like a muscle, right, in its own way. And so just being able to like think about these things, but also not letting it consume your soul is a big thing as well, right? So it's just like, just book club members, always just remember, be critical, right? Think about things, let it wash over you, okay? And thumbs up. But yeah, like, I just kind of wanted to bring up that comment because I saw it and I was like, that's a pretty good comment. Of Shizamong is that that do what you want.
I mean, what I want completely differs. I'm just like, it's one thing for me to be like, I expect something based on this storytelling and it doesn't happen. And sometimes that's good and sometimes it's bad.
But then there's things where they set up expectations for you and then don't meet those expectations, right? That's like the thing, right?
To put it in done Meshi terms, you can have a meal that you like that has things in it that you're not a fan of.
Yeah. Wow.
And you can still like the meal.
Yeah. But no.
And like I love everything they did with Laios, and I wasn't expecting any of that. A lot of stuff with
Yeah. Laios is just great. Like, no notes.
Really
Zero
good.
notes.
He's great. He's a fantastic character. And like a lot of stuff they did with Marcia like surprised me in good ways, and then like I just get like I'm so about economics and storytelling. It's my big thing. Like you can always fuse characters, you can always do stuff, and I do feel in that kind of old-timey webcomic way. Like Meshi really felt like reading like a 2009 webcomic or something, or even earlier, like a 2005 one, because that's when I was really into webcomics. Where like a little bit of it, about a third of it, felt like it was kind of just made up as it went along. And like, they're just like little things where it's like, I got confused the first time I saw like dwarves and gnomes, and I was like, oh, gnomes are a different race. Okay, what do they do? Why are there gnomes? That's interesting. And no gnomes are important characters, and they don't matter. And if you look in the world guide, it's like dwarves and gnomes have almost the exact same culture. And it's like, so why aren't they all dwarves? It's just like little things like that where I'm like, why did you show me this? It didn't matter. I get confused. For what it's worth, the one thing, gnomes are very into like, they're very like animism spiritual, which is like against the more practical geometry math that elves use. So there's like two different magic systems, which gets mentioned a lot because like I think Marcial uses elf magic and Fallen uses gnome magic, except like it doesn't really matter, like none of it matters.
But yeah, like I think we've pretty much covered just like most things except for the ending. Now I've already talked about how I felt the ending was like a little bit rushed, not like massively rushed. I've definitely seen like fucking just like one chapter fucking bang it out because we're getting acts kind of endings, right? But like it definitely felt like it was a pretty quick paced because like I felt like some characters didn't get to fully realize their character arcs and stuff like that. I feel like the way Mithrin ends is really great.
I liked that a lot.
Just like, look, obviously I love that character so much, right? And so, do you feel like Marcial gets a finish to like her character in the final thing where it's just like, did she just have to accept that like I can't make everyone live?
The ending to her story is just get over it, which is kind of funny. I didn't hate it because I did think that she started to see it in terms of like a food chain and how like nothing can last forever and you can't just expect like something has to eat other stuff. Everything can't just be at the same level. Like there are, that's part of it, I think her ending was mostly her going, I'm mature enough to be kind of okay with that now.
Yeah, I think the real end growth for her was when it came up that because of this curse that they didn't know what it was going to be, that that Fallen might not come back to life.
Yeah.
And having Marcille be the one to be like, I think I'm okay with that if that ends up being the case.
A very good story about impermanence. I thought something I didn't mention that is like, obviously we talked about the dungeon, but it's just like I love how one of the rules of the dungeon and how it's just like if you eat it, it can't come back. I'm just like, yeah,
that was really cool.
Just cool. But yeah, like you know, it's just like Chilchak being like, I'm gonna open a locksmith store, and it's like, cool, man. Good for you, man. Stay away from mimics. Just like I can't even remember what happens to Kabru at the end. Like he just exists, which is like fine. Senshi's just like, I'm just gonna keep living in dungeon or try to do just what I always have done.
The orcs want me around.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right? Like
I mentioned it in text, but that the orc girl cute as hell.
Oh yeah. That's fair. Cavalry becoming Laos's visor. He's drawn next to him in the end panels. I think that's neat. Fucking just, I love how it's like a small thing, but I love the art style at the end of the manga. How Laos
turning into like an old tapestry.
Yeah, old tapestry. I'm just like, that's so cool. It's just a good way to just end things off, right? Like,
Doll Queen. I like the orc sister crying when she said she would marry Laios for the orc betterment, but she didn't want to because she's a freak. That was really funny. Yeah, and like, I loved, I hate everything about this character, honestly, because I think he's an incel loser who wastes my time. But Shuro being the first character who confronts Laios and is like, I hate your ass. And he's like, what? You never fucking told me that. How am I supposed to figure it out? And he's like, just figure it out from social clues. And he's like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
And they fight over it. That scene's really good.
Yeah.
And then Shuro should have died and never been on screen again because he didn't do anything.
Yeah. Honestly, I was right. Yeah. God, just like sorry, I'm just like thinking about it. It's just like, here's one thing about me. I don't like endings. I would, for the most part.
So you love One Piece, is what you're saying?
That's not what I said. I always dread endings in such a big way, where it's just like Assassination Classroom, something I love a lot. It took me like a year to read the final chapter, and same thing with like so many things I read. Right, where I get to the end and I just have to stop, right? And so it's just like I had somewhat of that moment where it's just like, because once you close that final book, like it's the ending. It's just like finally the story is out of the hands of like the author and everything like that. And I can't imagine them going down in the dungeon and having more silly adventures and everything like that. It's just like, no, Laos is now a king and he probably fucking hates it. Like, and it's just like, man, imagine all the boring, mundane things they're doing now, right? Because usually at the end of the story, that's when all the like all the magic is gone for the most part, right? Like,
they kind of reneged on that, to be honest. They were like,
yeah,
magic will be fine, I'm sure. I'm like, that's the lamer option, to be honest, but go off, I guess.
Yeah. But like, story, nah, he definitely hates it. Yeah, I think that's the thing. If I was Laos, I would have been like, no, fuck off. But I guess like he had no option, because it's just like, it's either this or jail or something. Man forced to get a job in politics, yeah. God.
Yeah, I liked the ending well enough. I really, we talked about it a little. I love that, like, once you eat something and chemically converted, it can't be resurrected, and it's the one way to delete shit in the dungeon.
Yeah.
I like that the ending, the final boss is the whole community coming together to eat a meal of dragon to restore Fallen.
He was like, you guys had to do what I had to, you guys have to do what I said. Eat my sister, please eat my sister.
And then the party members are just like bowing, like, we're so sorry, please eat his sister though. And I love that I love that the first thing Fallen does when she comes back, which like she still has like a little dragon in her, like they didn't get rid of all of it, which I love. That was a good choice. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And like I love the idea that at some point cutting that up, someone had to cut up to like her thigh, and they made the choice of like, oh, do I go too far? And like, is someone gonna eat a little human in here? Yeah. No, and they leave a little dragon, and she wakes up. And she's like, sorry, we got as much as we could. And she's got like cute wings, or like feathers to make her even cuter. And she's like, this is fucking amazing, because she has the same mental illness that Laos does.
Yeah, I also like how Laos is like always like a little bit hungry as well. It's just like, damn, I would die. I would hate that so much. That is such a,
I like too that her first thing that she wants to eat is also the living armor, which is what Laos's was. Like, is the thing you really wanted to eat.
Yeah.
I like I love that the whole cast is like, Laos didn't fucking, he wouldn't have sold us out to become a stupid dragon monster, right? Oh my god, he totally fucking did. And like, they're right to be that way about it, which is great. But then also he's like, he just added one bullet point that's like, also I can eat desires. And he's like, yo, I'm gonna become a demon and eat the winged lion's desire. And that shot of the winged lion like digging into him and finding Laos like fucking Saturn eating his child, turning around, eating the desire is so fucking scary. I love it.
This series so much. It's just
the art is really good. Like the coldest take about Dungeon Meshi is that the artist is so good at drawing people.
Like it's this thing of like a lot of manga try to get art as good as this, right? But they sacrifice readability. But in this, it's so detailed, but yet it's so easy to comprehend. Is what I enjoy about it, right? It's just so solid, right? Like like I always said, the growth of like the paneling and everything about that is just like as things went along, and it's like I'm excited to see what they make in the future, right? Or if they stop here, you know, like it's gonna be neat because definitely probably has a lot more stories in them, you know. Like, but yeah, Ryoko gives a character's actual layer of body fat. Yeah. God. So yeah.
Hey, so for those of you who didn't read the World Guide, did you know that one dwarf who used to be in their party has a long leg fetish? Now you know that.
Thanks, Jello.
Thanks, World Guide.
Thanks, Jello.
I did like one that I saw around Tumblr of one of Kilchuk's daughters is really into dwarves and really
two of them are.
Yeah. And really wants to marry a dwarf.
And yeah, Chilchuk's like, everyone come to my house. You can meet my family. And then he looks over, Senshi can't come.
I mean, fair, dude. You've seen that art of Senshi, dude? Like, I mean, God.
He got it.
He got it.
He do got it.
He do kind of got it, though. Canceling my Patreon subscription now, thanks. Anytime. It's literally just chill check gender bit when the design is too good not to use again. Yeah, I saw like some like Tumblr and Twitter posts about that stuff, yeah. But no, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we did not cover in
that's one of the weirdest things about Dungeon Meshi is I keep seeing so much shit I've never seen of it from the author, like floating around social media.
The author has their own like blog place that I found, like it's literally linked on their like fucking My Anime List entry, right?
Like that's why that's part of the reason I'm like, this has big web, it's like very lackadaisy, where like you get these big updates and like lackadaisy has like a pretty large named cast, but like only like honestly like 8 characters that matter. But then there's all these like huge side detailed things of just like, here's a silly little thing I decided to make. And it's like, it's very much that with Dungeon Meshi, where it's like, what do you think Shuro's crew is thinking about. And I'm like, oh, I've never even pretended to think about that because they didn't matter in the story, etc.
Yeah. Some of the extras are, but it was like Daydream Hour. But I love seeing all the like characters in like modern clothes and stuff. That is great. There's that character that's like just Oz.
Yeah.
One of the elves. Yeah. Like I don't know. It's just like their art is just so fucking. I love it. I love it. I eat it up. I fucking eat it up. After reading One Piece for fucking like millions of years.
Yeah.
Thank God, bro. This is a nice thing to jump off of from One Piece. You know, like
yeah. It was very. There was a lot of that in our text chain of me being like, so nice to see it. Like a woman draw women
like,
for a little while.
Obviously the downside, this is like a lot shorter than One Piece, so there's like not like gonna be like a big like crazy reactions, and also we read it at like drastically different times for the most part. So but yeah, like no, just good shit. Like I said, I'd give it like a 7.5, 7.7 or whatever. To me, like,
sorry, finish your thought. I was gonna respond to a question.
It's that kind of thing of like, would I recommend this? Yes. Will I reread it? Probably not. And like for me, it's just like a 9 is like like super inspiring, and then like 10 is like life changing. So like a 7.5 is like pretty good, right? Like I have no problems recommending this to people, and it just goes to show what I said at the end of the One Piece one. People were like, what manga recommendations? I said, anything written by a woman. So there you go.
The people are asking if there's going to be an Imgur album for this one. I don't know.
Not a lot of jokes this time.
Yeah, it's not very funny.
Yeah, because like with One Piece, we could make fun of it a lot. You know, so like
even when I was compiling the Imgur, if you skim back through it, you'll notice there's very little commentary through like honestly like Skypea is kind of where we start dunking on it and making gags. But for the first like 200 chapters, it's pretty like, I have screen capped this because I find it interesting. Look at I'm keeping notes for a book club. And
don't say that Golden Kamui's next, because Golden Kamui's not next. Don't say next. Answers you don't know. Okay, we'll say it at the end. But yeah, go on. Sorry.
Yeah, just not like there's just not a lot of interesting stuff. It's mostly just it's the same shit as the One Piece one when it was like more technical. Like Bo and I screen capped a lot of the same panels and went like Wamana or Bark edit. And then a lot of it is just me going like, I wish I liked this a little more. I hate not liking things and complaining about them, and then complaining for an essay, and then Bo being like, it's not that deep, dude.
Yeah, like it's hard for me because I read everything in the book club I've read physically, except for like the end of Dungeon Meshi because they aren't out physically yet. So it's hard for me to you know, to bring out my phone and then screenshot the manga page and then upload it to like Discord and stuff. So it's like a lot of less like comments from me. I tried my best because Jello was reading it. I was like, fuck, I gotta finish before Jello does so I can at least try to comment on his stuff. But then Jello
I saw you making the effort.
Yeah, but then Jello would be up at 5 a.m. reading manga, and I'm like, bro, 5 a.m. for him is like 7 a.m. for me. I'm gone, bro. I'm outie. Yeah. But no, Dungeon Meshi. Good job, everyone. Good job, everyone who read.
It was pretty good.
Good.
And so I think that's pretty much it. I don't know anything else we would talk about. And so we got some news, obviously. There's going to be no book club in February because Jello's going to be gone. Completely fucking gone.
Yeah, I'm out of the country for like the whole month.
Yeah, he's outie 9000. And also, Bo is tagging out for the next one. So everybody, say how much you appreciate Bo and how great Bo is for doing all of One Piece with us. And then also doing
Jesus Christ.
And
Bo and I are still. Yeah. By the way, since we're working on some flavor of this is basically One Piece. I chatted up the fucking director of the dub right now since I'm friends with her, and was like, hey, what are the rules about having people who were in One Piece do One Piece parody, and she's like, don't quote me, but I don't think anyone will care, but like, don't quote me. So here I am quoting her. But yeah, Bo is still torturing himself through One Piece movies.
So
it was my idea, and I like it.
And so the next thing we are going to read, and it will probably be in the month after February, which I can't remember off the top of my head. Aloha
March,
exclusive
dude.
book March. Dude, I would have to. It would suck because I'd have to go January, February, March, and that's too long for me, bro. Okay. And so the next thing we're gonna read is Pluto, and Yam is gonna join us for that. So
yeah, we rather than just doing another big poll, this one's just gonna be our pick because I think this is the right genre turn to like keep. I want to cover like a lot of different genres of things, and Pluto's like a robot murder mystery.
Yeah, right. It's definitely not like the other things we have read, right? So Pluto, because I don't think anyone would vote it, right? And then afterwards we may throw out a vote, or we may just choose something again. So we'll see.
Yeah, there'll be a vote after this. Pluto's probably also going to be a one-sitting one.
Yeah,
because
it's
I
only
think it's
8
just
volumes.
like 7 volumes.
It's 8 volumes, right? I have it on my shelf right here. So it's shorter than Dungeon Meshi. So yeah, but yeah. So
and also we'll have Yam on the next one, which Yam was maybe going to join us for Dungeon Meshi, and then she started it and was like, no thanks.
Yeah. But yeah, so nice. I read all 20. Should I read the manga or watch the anime first? I mean, this is a manga book club. If you're going to join us, read the manga. So yeah. Thank you all for coming out. It's only 65 chapters. Yeah, it's gonna be easy. So like, it'll be a nice warm up after the February break, right? And then maybe we'll tease doing something a little bit longer. We'll see. We'll see how we feel after that, and if we're alive by then. So, thank you all for coming out. Thank you, Jello and Bo, for obviously coming here. You know, it's been a busy few months, but you know, all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah.
Well, when I look into the fucking middle distance.
Nah, I feel you. All right. So yeah, later everybody.
Bye.